Welcome to another edition of the Educational Athletic Director, this time featuring the FIAAA Insider. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast, this time featuring the FIAAA Insider. Our guest today is Wayne Stofsky. Wayne is the Director of Athletics at the Posnack School in Miami, Florida. Wayne, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much, Jake. And it's funny because everybody groups everything, down here is Miami, and David Posnack, the school is actually in Davie, which is in Broward County, probably about 30 minutes from downtown Miami.
And I should know that, having been in that area for a few years as an AD. So my apologies to David Posnack School and Davie.
Actually, Jake, we have three campuses. We do have a campus in Dade County in Aventura, which is a lower school. So I actually oversee three campuses in three counties. So you'd have been right all along.
All right. I appreciate you bailing me out on that. Well, Wayne, as much as anyone how busy the athletic director's day is. So we're going to jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners hear a little bit about you. So tell us, hey, where were you born? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get involved in sports?
Well, I hope this podcast has a lot of time because I've had a lot of different lives, before I actually became an athletic director. But I was born in South Florida, born on South Beach, actually, down on Miami Beach. My mom went to Beach High, and my parents moved to Broward County. I was 2 years old. So I grew up in South Florida, played sports year round, baseball, football, basketball, all the way through until I got to high school. And I actually went to Nova High School, which is in Davie. And if you remember, a legendary coach who is just retiring this year, Pat McQuaid. And I played for him baseball and football when I got to Nova High School. And it was a great experience. I mean, Coach McQuaid is, a Hall of Famer in Broward County, the state of Florida, FACA, you name it. So he taught me a lot about the games, baseball, football. I gave up basketball my sophomore year of high school because I was not going to be a basketball player. But stuck with both those sports through high school, ended up signing a baseball scholarship, went on to play at LSU for another legendary coach in Skip Bertman, who's a Hall of Famer and probably the smartest guy I have ever played for or been around. Taught me so much. After college, I was fortunate enough to sign and play a couple of years in the minor leagues, spend some time out west in Salt Lake City, not far from where you're originally from in Oregon, and then actually went overseas and played in the Italian Pro League just outside Milan, Italy. And that was back in 1991, which would have been my last year competitively as a professional player. And then came back to the States, and that's kind of where my coaching and administrative career began.
Well, I know you've, as varied a career as you've had as an athlete, you also had quite a variety in your working career. Take us through that path from former athlete to active athletic administrator.
So when I came back to the States after that last year of playing in Italy, it was October. So school had already started. Luckily, I had finished my undergrad degree before I had signed that first professional contract. And I really put my hands up and what am I going to do now? So Coach McQuaid at Nova High School asked if I wanted to be his assistant coach, and they got me a job there at Nova High School, kind of as an in-house substitute. So I had a job every day, until I wanted to figure out what I was going to do next. So I coached there at Nova in 1992 with Coach McQuaid. It was a great experience. And during that time, the head coach at Miami-Dade North Community College asked if I wanted to be the assistant coach there at the college. And at the same time, they were going to pay for my master's degree. So I took that opportunity. I was a coach at Miami-Dade North Community College in 93, got my master's degree in sports administration, and then maybe made the biggest mistake of my life. And I left coaching and went into television. So I had interned for NBC while I was getting my master's degree, and became a television sports anchor. And I spent my first 2 years in Tallahassee, right there in your neck of the woods, at WTXL, the ABC affiliate, covering Florida State and FAMU and every high school from, just east of Panama City all the way to Jefferson County and down to Wakulla. And I remember all those small towns and all the great people.
They
And
call
after
that
spending
the
2
Big
years
Bend. Yeah.
in all across the Big Bend, I learned all the back roads, and that's before we had GPS on your phone. Like
Oh my
I
goodness.
used to keep the map in the side, in the door of that WTXL van.
Mhm.
I spent the next 2 years at the NBC affiliate in the Fort Myers, Naples market. And then at the end of 99, my wife and I had our first child and decided to leave local television. And I moved back to South Florida. I live in Cooper City, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood. And when I came back here, stayed in that production business, spent about 8 years in the multimedia production business. But at some point along the way, I'd say, 2010, I got a phone call from a facility, and they asked me if I wanted to open a baseball academy. Baseball had been most of my life. I was working business and had this time. So we opened up the Broward Baseball Academy at the end of 2010. 2 years later, built a 4,000 square foot covered hitting facility, 3 turfed batting cages, pitching machines, nets, tees, hired coaches, summer camps, and rented it out to teams, and it was great. A couple of years into that, I got a call from another one of your athletic directors, probably in the FIAA, Paul Megna at Cooper City High School, who asked me to be the head baseball coach at Cooper City High. So I was the head baseball coach at Cooper City High, and if I remember correctly, 2013 and 14, and then got a call from Jeff Johnson at the Pinecrest School in Fort Lauderdale, and became the head coach at Pinecrest in 2015. And just after that, 2 fantastic schools, by the way, and enjoyed working with Paul and Jeff Johnson at Pinecrest. Got a call from Dr. Richard Cuenca, who is the head of school at the David Posnack School. And he said, I'd like to talk to you about being our athletic director. And it's funny because I never ever thought I'd be working in a school, let alone a private Jewish day school, and being the athletic director. But it's been fantastic. I just finished my 5th year. I am actually the director of athletics for a group of private schools. So our main campus is K-12. We have a campus that was in Aventura. We just built a brand new school and we moved it to Hallandale Beach. And then we have Meyer Prep, which is a K-8 in Palm Beach Gardens. So I oversee athletics on all 3 of those campuses, which is about 50 teams in 13 different sports. And I also oversee the physical education department. So I do the hiring and evaluating, and if we have to, the letting go of the PE teachers as well. Even though, Jake, I do not teach. I do not teach a class, and I choose not to coach a team at any of the schools. That way I can give my undivided attention to all the coaches in all the different sports.
Wow, what a fantastic path you've had so far. Having gone to a large public school as a student and coached at some of the bigger public schools, what's the difference between that type of environment or that type of culture, if you will, and the culture that you have at a small private school? You and I have worked at similar schools. I was at Coral Springs Christian, I was at Palmer Trinity, and now I'm at McClay. So what's the difference between being at the big school versus being at the small school?
So I think the biggest difference is the actual setup, the organizational chart. And I think I'm fortunate. Others might not think so, but in my position at the Posnack School, I only answer to the head of school. So I am on the leadership team with the principals and the CFO and the director of marketing. So I have a lot of accountability, but I get to make a lot of decisions, and I don't have to go through a lot of red tape. And our head of school, he hired me to do a job. He has put me in this position. And if people try to go above me to him, he'll ask, have you called Wayne? Have you talked to Wayne? He gives me that freedom to make hires without having to get approval from him. But like I said, at the end of the day, I am going to be held accountable for that. I think that's the biggest difference between a school like ours, and Maclay is probably very similar, and a large public school, where at the public school as an athletic director, you have to answer usually to an assistant principal who oversees sports. And then you also have the principal, and then you have the school board, the county, a county athletic director. So I think it's a little more difficult to get things done in a large public setting, and you don't have probably as much say-so as you could in a smaller private setting.
I think you really hit it on the nail on the head. I've been so blessed here at Maclay, as the AD. I've got a new position now, but our head of school is exactly the same way. You're the athletic director. Run your program. Make us look good and keep problems off my desk. So that's great when you have that type of support.
And I think I think that television and public speaking background that I had really helped me for this position, because it's me that has to deal with the parents and the families. And while I continue to say I'm not political at all, you have to be a little bit, you have to know how to walk and talk and present and hold orientations, and you have to really become a good listener. And I've gotten better at that over the years. I think in the beginning I was, a little tough right from the start. And Dr. Cuenca, our head of school, kind of helped me a little bit with that. And I think parents feel comfortable coming to me because they know I'm going to at least listen to them. They might not always like the answer I give them, but I'm going to listen.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Very true. We've touched a little bit on leadership. And as an athletic director, we all have had, those mentors, those leaders in our lives. You've mentioned some of your coaches, who have been the key mentors for you in your career so far?
Well, Coach McQuaid at Nova was a baseball and football coach, but then, later on, long after I was gone, he became the athletic director. So I do reach out to him and talk to him, and Paul Megna at Cooper City, because I was the baseball coach there, and that was the first time I had really coached at the high school level in a large setting. And we had been friendly for years before I became the coach there. As far as pure knowledge, Skip Bertman at LSU, who was my baseball coach, he was a genius. I mean, he still is a genius. And when I was sitting on the bench next to him, all I wanted to do was listen. I was a sponge. And it was unbelievable how he knew what the other team was going to do before they did it. And I think that can help you as an athletic director too. I tell people I like to stay 3 steps ahead, 3 innings ahead, 3 games ahead of everybody else, so that I'm never surprised. And later on, Skip Bertman moved into the athletic director's role at LSU, where he was a genius of a fundraiser. And being in a leadership role at our school, I am also saddled with that. We do not have booster clubs on our campus. We don't ask our parents for money, per se to, buy things on a team level. But, as you know, at Maclay, fundraising is a large part of it, because the tuition alone, in most private schools I've learned, straight tuition covers about 75% of the cost of the school, and you have to go out and raise a lot more money. And we've done a lot of building and additions with regards to building new buildings and an athletic turf complex and a new gym. So, Skip Bertman really helped me with that. And then in this position, Dr. Cuenca, who is our head of school, he's really an entrepreneur, sitting at a head of school. He likes to call himself a glorified fundraiser. He is an academia, he's got a doctorate in education and reading. So with the things that I do not believe I'm an expert at, I lean on him for those things. So that's probably the people, in addition to, of course, your parents, who were always there for me. They always had my back. everything I wanted to try, they gave me the opportunity, and I think it helped greatly.
Mhm. COVID has certainly been a presence here in Florida as well as across the country. Um, what we've seen so far is that there hasn't been a consistent response nationwide or even statewide. The things our schools are doing up here in the Panhandle, almost 180 degrees from what's going on down in your neck of the woods. I understand, we already talked about it. There's a big meeting this coming Monday, but what are some things that you did with your student athletes, your teams, your coaches this past spring when we lost spring sports? And what are some things you're doing right now regarding summer conditioning?
Well, so the first part of that question, we got all our coaches together, and of course, everybody was disappointed when the spring was shut down there in the middle of March. I tried to keep in contact as much as I could with the coaches, but more importantly, with the kids and their families. We did end the spring with an athletic awards banquet. Maybe we do it a little differently than some of the other schools. I know most of the larger schools, each individual team would have a banquet, a football banquet, a girls volleyball banquet, basketball, so forth. At our school, I actually do 2 end of the year banquets. I do one for our middle school and one for our high school. And it's a full blown awards presentation with videos and, MVPs and most improved and coaches award for every team. The coaches speak. So I did that this year, just like this, via Zoom. And I put together slideshows and photos with the awards for the kids. And it went very well. The coaches did a good job. Our families could not have been more, grateful that we took the time to do this, knowing the way that everything ended. So that's how we went into the summer. We're a little different than most larger schools or even private schools that, have a large emphasis on athletics. We do not get together in the summer for conditioning and training as a school. Most of our students that are, into athletics are going to do that on their own. I believe the start date this year for most schools was supposed to be July 27th, was that official start date. We start school this year on August 19th. So none of our teams would really be on campus or practice until August 10th, only 9 days before school. And that was girls volleyball, cross country, and we have a private boys high school flag football league that we created because we don't have tackle football on our campus. So our campus has been shut down the entire summer, as most of the campuses have been in Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. So there's nobody on our campus now except a couple of administrators, and I've been working from home most of the time.
Mm-hmm. What's your take on South Florida and the startup? Again, the official date was July 27th, which is about 2 weeks from now. I think a lot of people are looking at the state association to maybe delay that for a couple of weeks. Let's say that happens. Let's say they push the start date back. Is South Florida, is the Posnack school, going to be ready in those 3 additional weeks? Is that going to impact you? What's your feeling on that?
So as of today, so we're recording this on Friday, July 17th. I had a meeting with my head of school yesterday. And as of today, we're not ready to make an official announcement as to what we're going to do, come August 19th when we open school. If you're asking me my gut feeling, I do not think sports are going to start in the fall down here in South Florida. In the last couple of days, the Broward County Public School Board has said they will be 100% online to start the year, so no kids on campus. I believe Palm Beach has done the same, and it would not surprise me if Dade County follows suit here any day now. We know in the fall that tackle football is king, and there's a lot of revenue to be had for the larger schools that play tackle football, and that's going to affect them. As you mentioned, it is a total 180-degree difference. Probably north of Orlando, with, in regards to what we're doing down here. I don't know how schools are going to start and play if they're not allowing students on campus. So I'll just take Broward County, for instance. If they're not allowing students on campus to go to class every day, I don't know how they're going to allow them to start athletics. I mean, the parents are going to probably throw their hands up and say, you're going to let these kids play football and volleyball, but they can't go to class? That's, I think, the biggest concern. We've been knocking around some different ideas down here. We play against a lot of other private schools down here, in addition to the public schools and the charter schools that are in the FHSAA and the Broward County Athletic Association. It's almost like we're thinking, why don't we go back to school on the 19th and wait 2 or 3 weeks before we actually start sports? Because as you know, there's a 2-week lag when it comes to COVID. The big spike that we're seeing now in the state of Florida, and it's a huge spike, we think is coming from what happened July 4th weekend, where everybody got out and people were together and there were parties and activities, and now we're seeing the spike. So when everybody gets back on campus that 2nd or 3rd week of August, is there going to be another big spike 2 or 3 weeks after that? And if the answer is no, then maybe we start easing into athletics. If the answer is yes, I think the decision across the state is going to be easy, because they're going to shut everything down.
Well, and again, delaying 3 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever it is, no one has, because they can't, but no one's answered the question, well, what do you do when Billy tests positive or Coach Smith tests positive? Then what? Is it the season over? Is the team in quarantine? So again, I asked the question knowing that, hey, we really don't know the answer.
Well, so I said Broward County is going to be 100% online. In our school, the situation's a little different. As of today, we are giving our families, and on our main campus, we have 800 students. We're giving our families an option, and they have to give us their answer by August 5th. Now, remember, school starts August 19th. The first option is we want our kids in school 5 days a week on campus. And if they choose that, they're going to follow all our rules. So they're going to be masks worn at all times. We have now separated out our lower school from our middle school from our high school with regards to cross-contamination. We've made 3 separate dining halls, as opposed to the one major dining hall that we've had for the last 5 years. Our lower school and middle school kids can't come into the high school building, and vice versa. Same with teachers. Very few people, someone like me that works with all 3 divisions, I'm going to have a mask, a shield, maybe even hospital gown. They're taking it very seriously. Lower school and middle school PE will all be outside. They can't come into the gym, which is in the high school. So, what happens if little Billy in 2nd grade gets sick? Are they going to send home his entire class? Because we're going to know the tracing. We're going to know where everybody is at all times and what paths they cross. So, that's one option. The second option is, are you going to work virtual? Now, we have spent an awful lot of money this summer preparing our school for the COVID way. We have put flat screen TVs into every classroom with 2 different cameras and a thing called an OWL system, where if you choose to work remotely, you'll be at home sitting in front of your computer with your school uniform on. You will do your 6, 7 classes, whatever the day is. The teacher and the students in that classroom can see you on that large flat screen TV. They can hear you. And then the whiteboards or the smart boards that the teacher does all the writing on, that will be shared with that student at home. So he sees it on his computer the same way the 2 of us are looking at each other. So it's as if the kid is sitting in the classroom. When the family makes that choice, whether they're coming to school or they're working remotely, they have to stay that way through winter break. It goes all the way through, January until we come back to school, because we don't want the cross-contamination. If someone's at home doing their thing, they're going to stay at home. The only way it changes is if we have a kid in class and that child gets sick, well, now they can go home and work remotely, and of course have to, get 2 negative tests and everything else the CDC says. So, we spent a lot of money. we're going to see how long we can last going that way.
Well, I'm going to guess that, your response as a school has, spoke volumes with your stakeholders and probably been received very positively. I know, Maclay, we were, I think, more ready than most of the schools in Leon County back in the spring to go online just because of our clientele and our mission. And, we've stepped that up in anticipation of those same types of options during the fall. So it's going to be wild. There's no question about it.
And I think Maclay is, we're pretty similar to Maclay. I mean, look, I lived in Tallahassee for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maclay does it the right way. Yes, our parents expected, a lot. You're talking about a high tuition number. They deserve it. We polled all our families, and I want to say it was about 94% said they wanted their children on campus 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Now that the numbers are spiking, that next poll is August 5th. We're going to see where it comes in at.
Yeah. And then the other question, we don't have to go into it, but polling the teachers, what do the teachers want to do?
I did that this week, so
Yeah.
I can tell you what they want to do.
Okay. Well, Wayne, this has been great. I've really enjoyed hearing about you and hearing about the way you do things at your school. We've kind of come to the end, and we always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you've been in sports for a long time. You've been an AD now. You're getting ready to send off a brand new athletic director to their first job, and I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What's going to go in Wayne Stofsky's athletic director toolbox?
Good question. And I've learned a lot of this by, watching the FIAA and going to the meetings last year. And thank you for all that you do. And I'm hoping to even get more involved, over the next 3 to 5 years. So I would say number 1 is communication. Become as good a communicator as you possibly can, because the parents of these children want to hear from you all the time and know what's going on. Number 2, be very detail oriented and organized. I think for an administrator and even for a high school coach, 50 to 75% of everything you do is organizational. And the more organized you are, I think the easier it makes your job. And number 3, which I think is the one that I enjoy the most, is be seen. Don't be an athletic director that sits in that office overlooking everybody. Get out there. I try every week to get to as many games as I can. It doesn't matter if it's a girls' volleyball game or a swimming match, swim meet, basketball, tennis. I try to get to as many games and practices as I can every day, because I'll tell you what, your coaches and those student athletes, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I love going to games. So be seen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Again, I tell our coaches, our assistant ADs, where else can you get paid to go watch a high school baseball game or a girls basketball game? You're getting paid to go there.
That's right. That's right.
Well, thank you so much. Again, to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Wayne, thanks for being our guest today.
All right. Thank you very much for having me, Jake, and stay safe.
You too. And tune in again to another edition of the Educational AD.